Hi, and welcome to FrazlCast. Climb aboard the GNOME train.
Chugga, 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 chugga.
Please make sure to keep your limbs and experimental instruments inside the train at all times. And now, on with the show.
A podcast by a Blizzard fan gnome about World of Warcraft and geeky stuff. I promise you, they do talk about the World of Warcraft. They just go off the rails sometimes.
And tonight's not going to be one of those nights to talk about World of Warcraft because we've got an awesome guest. So I'm Frazley, and I am joined by Jerry Rocha.
What's up? Thank you for having me. Yeah, dude, I haven't played a second of World of Warcraft. I apologize. I don't know. Yeah, I missed the boat completely.
Only do it if you want to give up your entire life. If you want to be like doing so much stuff, because once you start, you'll never be able to stop.
That's what I heard. That's why I can't. There's already enough things I obsess over. It's like I can't jump into this now. I can't do it.
And you're already doing so much. Or we're going to get into it in the show, but you've already do so much.
You know what? Real quick on World of Warcraft. I wanted to play it when I saw the expansion commercial, 8 years ago, where they had like the Karate Panda. I was like, okay. I was like, I'm in. This I'm into. I'm into this. I could play this, but yeah, I still didn't.
I think those pandas like noodles. So that was a long-running joke where everybody thought that Mr. Pandaria was based off of Kung Fu Panda. So,
that's funny. That's funny.
On this show, before we get into the interview stuff, I always like to see what we've been up to. So, Epic and Sandy, what time is it?
It's time to go around the table.
Great idea. So, what have you been up to, Jerry?
I just finished The Last of Us 2.
Nice!
I just went back and finished God of War. And I had no idea how I avoided all the spoilers. And I didn't realize how close I was to the end of the game. Because I went back and I'm like, well, I still got to go to the World Serpent and get and I'm like, that's the last mission. I was like, oh, this is it. So I'm on a high of God of War and Last of Us 2. And I'm seeing now in my brain, I'm drawing these parallels to both games of the child and the parent, and you know what I mean? Like I'm very much like loving the parallels on both. And of course, God of War is kind of a no-brainer. Everybody loved it. I know Last of Us 2 has divided a lot of people. I don't see how. I thought it was tremendous. I really loved every second of it.
That's making me want to pull up my PS4. I've got a PS4 over that I've not plugged because I loved Last of Us 1 in the DLC.
Yeah. Tremendous. And this one, it's controversial.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard the spoilers or know what happens, but I loved every choice.
I have to ask, are you excited for the PS5?
Yes. Oh, yeah. I'm excited. So my PlayStation, Xbox, they all didn't exist for me. I was Nintendo purist.
Okay.
That was it. And I forgot which one came first. I'm sure one of your fans can fact check this. But then I believe I was like, I'm just going to play Nintendo systems. I was dumb enough to be like, I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm a Nintendo guy. And then I saw Knights of the Old Republic for the original Xbox. And I'm like, I got it. And then
that game is so good.
I got an Xbox for that. And then I was at a local game store where I grew up in Dallas, Texas. And I was, when I was still living in Dallas, I went to a store that a buddy of mine from high school worked at. So he would always hook me up with the good stuff, right? He would always set aside an exclusive for me or a steel book, things like that. And I go in and I see a demo on the PS2 of God of War. And I'm like, so I had to buy that, you know what I mean? So that's what ended my stupid little, I'm only loyal to, so now I'm excited for the new Xbox. I'm excited for the new PS5. Whenever the new Switch comes out, I'm ready. I can't wait.
I love how the Switch now, Nintendo has realized they don't have to be the only one. They're the perfect complement to whatever you love to do. PC, Xbox, PlayStation. It's
great. This system, they learned the mistakes of the Wii U, which is a disaster, and they rebounded tremendously. And, it doesn't hurt. And another reason I was such a Nintendo guy and always will be is Legend of Zelda. I'm such a mark for Legend of Zelda. Anything that comes out, Zelda, I'm buying it, I'm playing it. That's why I stuck with Nintendo, obviously.
I remember that my sister, I was the little kid following my sister to the game store, and my sister picks up Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and I watched her play it, and I was like, I was never good at it. I always play out on a save after she was done, but I was always in awe at her skill.
For me, it was the original one. I had a dream I'll never forget this. I didn't hear anything about this. It was like a week after I beat the first Legend of Zelda, the original one. I had a dream where my mom walked me into a KB toy store and they had Legend of Zelda Part 2. And I remember waking up being so disappointed that it wasn't real. And I was too dumb back then to not realize, dude, they're going to make 1,000 of these, right? And I was like, well, I guess there'll never be a Part 2. And then one day we walk into KB Toys. I'm like, what? You know, yes.
The heavens gave you a divine...
Yes. It's the only omen I've ever had. Very useless omen. It's not going to help anybody. They should have warned me about COVID. Something. They should have been like, look. But nope, they just showed me that there's going to be Legend of Zelda Part 2 in 6 months. That's all the gods gave me. I'll take it.
Did they ever tell you that Will Ferrell would actually do a good movie?
Nice. Look at that. Shots fired. We are taking no prisoners today.
No, I figured you would probably share my, like, I watched your version on Netflix. I don't know how Will Ferrell did it.
Man.
I actually enjoyed that.
No kidding. I've heard mixed. I've heard it's good. I've heard it's terrible. I guess I just have to see it for myself. And it's like,
yeah, watch it once because there's like one song like ja ja ding dong. It's like this. Yeah, it is so good.
I'll watch it.
I wouldn't say it's my favorite movie. There's way better movies,
sure.
but it was fun.
Okay, that's all you need right now. Something fun, nice to get your mind off awful things. That's great. Yeah.
One reason you don't want to get into WoW unless you absolutely want to. When you get into WoW, you are going to be grinding for mounts.
Right.
I got one of the rarest mounts this week.
Oh, look at
Ashes
this.
of Valar.
Look at that. What kind of mount is it? A horse? Is it a dragon? What is this thing?
It's a bird that has like it's all like purple, orange. It's like literally almost like you're on fire and you're flying.
Dope.
Yeah.
So how do you get something that, is it luck? Is it like Pokemon? You just have to find it somewhere and you're like, I can't believe I found this thing.
Some of them are that you have to find it. But like this one, you run the same content over and over again. And then if the dice roll is good on you, you get it. If not, yeah. Wow.
Okay. Interesting. I'm down. I like that.
It's a 1% drop rate. So it is like,
oh my God.
Yeah.
I've done that. I don't know if you played Octopath Traveler.
No, I've not, but a Spaz House.
Ooh. There's a lot of 1% drops that the thieves could get. And I would just sit there and just rob someone over and over, reset, and just rob the dude over and over until I got that 1%. I spent like an hour and a half just walking up to this old guy, robbing him 24/7. Like, I'm getting this. I'm getting this. I want this thing. Yeah, I get it. I've been there.
I got it. Yeah. And he's like, well, okay, just leave me alone. I'm going to give it to you. Just never come back.
You think after the 50th time, the guy's like, well, how much? Do you want to just buy it? Like, you think that would just, if someone 100 times in a row kept trying to pickpocket me, eventually I might just be like, dude, what? Like, what do you want? If it's
here's
not that sentimental,
you take it.
I'll sell it to you. How about that?
Oh, I'm already having a great time, and you're making me laugh, which is good.
Hey, I'm in. Thank you. I appreciate it.
You've got skills.
I try. I don't know about that, but thank you.
I want to thank Cap for the help with the show notes tonight. So Cap helped do a ton of research. Oh, he is.
He has a questionable taste in professional football franchises that he roots for. But past that, fantastic guy. There's one blight on his resume. It's this weird, horrific team that he roots for when it comes to the NFL, specifically the NFC East. Because there's really only one team to root for in all of the NFL and all of the NFC East, and that would be my hometown Dallas Cowboys. But for whatever reason, he's chosen the Giants. I can't judge him. I can't get mad. I just have to accept it and move on. That's it.
Absolutely.
That's all I can.
Yeah.
That's all I can do.
We all have our weak spots and our loves for teams. Like,
yes,
I still root for the Columbus Blue Jackets, which until this year, or it wasn't this year. One of the years they actually did good.
They got close. That's right. Yeah. Are you from Ohio? You from Columbus?
Yeah. Nice. Over in Columbus, Ohio, which is also a level 3 health area. So I'm staying inside.
Oh my God, it is. Oh, I'm so sorry, dude. Yeah, there's a great club there, the Funny Bone. I worked a long time ago. Way back in the day, yeah.
That's the one at Easton, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it was inside of a mall, I think. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. That was a great room.
That one's done multiple. I know they had the clean bananas, but then also other stuff. I mean, they had so many places to go to that.
It's amazing.
Wow. Okay. I feel like now we are like kindred spirits. Like you know my places here.
Absolutely. Come on.
So I want to first go over your comedy history. So you've been
please.
touring for 22 years, which is incredible.
Yeah. Right at like literally I was done with high school. I'm like, man, I don't want to fuck with college. I don't want any of this. I don't want a 9-to-5 gig. I couldn't see myself. People who do it, man, my heart and hat goes off to them. To me,
Yeah.
I'm just not wired that way. I was like, is there any other thing from, I'm a night owl. There's no way I could consistently wake up at 6 a.m. to go to work. I'd be dead in a month. I would just drive off a cliff one morning during a commute, So I was like, I really don't know what college. And I always just wanted to do stand-up. I was in love with stand-up since I was 4 years old, and I saw Eddie Murphy on HBO, and I'm like, this is it. It was funny, but there was a comedy club in Dallas that me and my buddies in high school used to go hang out at. They had a very lax, I think it was 16 and up, right? So they would give you a little things you couldn't order drinks or whatever, and we would go. It was like we thought we were adults, right? We're like, whoa, we're going into a nightclub to watch a show, and I just loved watching these comedians. I thought, and I remember I was just there one night. I was with my girlfriend at the time in high school, and we were just just going out to the club, and they had a little placard on the table and said, "Hey, do you think you're funny? You should try our open mic night." And I'm like, oh, and then right when I graduated high school, like a week later, I signed up for the open mic, and that was it. Just never looked back kind of thing. Just worked a bunch of little 9-to-5 retail jobs that were flexible with scheduling, so I could, and then just, that was it. Just committed to it and started traveling, and that was the life.
I'm going to guess there's probably been like a lot of learning you had to do over your you're starting it.
There's still learning. That's what I love about it. That's why I love stand-up, is one day, hopefully it comes back to normal once COVID has been contained. But yeah, there's still, what I love about it is you're always learning.
Have you seen The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
I never have. I got to see that. I haven't seen it yet. It's weird. Like, I don't know why I tend to avoid watching, like, I don't know if it's that way with every profession. Like, I don't know if mobsters watch The Sopranos or not, you know what I mean? But like, I just like, I feel like, I don't know if serial killers checked out Dexter. Like, I have no idea. Maybe that was big with them, but like, I just can't, like, I have a hard time watching a show about what I did, because I just because I know they'll take liberties for a story, and I'm so born and bred with stand-up that I don't want to have to watch a show and be like, bullshit, that would never happen. Like, I don't want to do that. So that's why I haven't yet. I heard it's great.
As a podcaster, I struggled with the show by Alex Goldberg of Gimlet, because the show on ABC was totally not how you do podcasting.
Right.
And I'm like, no.
Right. It's you want to call, like, there was that movie in the 80s, Punchline, with Tom Hanks and Sally Field, about stand-up comedians. And I remember when I started doing comedy was in the mid-90s, and comics would still talk about that movie amongst themselves. And there's just so, like, because I didn't know. I thought that at every comedy club, there was a locker room where the comedians would change. And that was part of this. I'm like, oh, wow. And I remember, like, I remember I asked, like, is there a locker room here at the club? When I first were there, they just like, what? Oh, you saw Punchline. Okay, look, there's no locker room. That's, like, it was pretty funny. Like how, like just little things like that can offend people who do it for a living. And it's like, oh, that's not what it is.
It's why I know people that like, that do IT hate shows about IT, or like,
right,
enhance the image.
Yeah. One of my best friends, Ben, is a big computer genius, and he couldn't stand any movie in the 90s where there's like typing real fast, and he's like, you can't do that. He's like, that's not. It's like, so it's pretty funny.
And I want to mention a few of the things that you've done, because I'm impressed. Like, semi-finalist
thanks, man.
on season 7 of NBC Last Comic Standing.
Yep, that was fun.
You were on Crown and Comedy Central's Stand Up Revolution.
Yep, did Conan. Had an hour on Netflix that now is not. It's just kind of in limbo. I've been told it might go to some other service soon.
Yeah,
we'll see. Yeah, but it's been fun. It's been fun.
And produced by somebody that I saw live, and I was just like, I was like rolling in laughter when I saw them. Gabriel Iglesias.
Yeah, yep, sure, Fluffy. Yep.
Oh,
yeah, man.
I can't tell me how many times I repeat his jokes like. And you also have 3 full-length comedy albums.
Yeah, they're right there wherever you get your music, iTunes, whatever. Yeah, Spotify, Pandora, they're all there. I got 3 of them.
So, what would you say is an obstacle that you've had to overcome in all of this?
Oh, God, self-doubt. Self-doubt is the biggest obstacle that I think most probably, I don't know how many of them will admit it, but I think that's probably what most comedians will deal with is just there are times when I'll have a really good set and the crowd, fortunately, really is into what I've done. And I still am like, hey, was that any good?
Yeah.
Was that really any good? Was that really any funny? Like that? Oh yeah. I think that's the biggest hurdle is, my friend, he passed away, but he was a brilliant comedian named Mike DiStefano. He was also on season 7 of Last Comic Standing that I was on, but he had the best line. He said, all the wrong people have confidence.
I like that.
It's so true. And yeah, but that's the hardest is that the biggest obstacle I've always felt with comedy is just this like, this sucks. Like you write a joke, it'll even do well. And part of me still is like, fuck, that's no good.
I think that's shared by, I know I feel that for what I do, but it's one like every creative I've had on here feels that like you expect a higher degree of standard for yourself than others expect of you.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes you good. You don't want to be the person because I got it made.
Yeah.
That's why I tell you, I still want to learn. I still want to get better as a comedian. I still want to, find out something I didn't know before. And I think it's part of, especially like what you do, podcasting and with streaming and stand-up comedy. Those are creative forms where you have to carry the show.
Yeah.
You are putting yourself out there. You're the one that, people aren't tuning in to see World of Warcraft. They want to see you play right? So
yeah,
that's why I think that kind of thing makes it easier to self-doubt yourself because you're just putting all of you out there. It's like, this is me, this is it.
So vulnerable.
Yeah.
I saw a comedian on my last trip, and because I rarely see this. They did not see the audience at first, and then like half of the show was like jokes were just not landing. But then I saw them turn it around, and the room was then roaring in laughter. Yeah.
It's a great feeling, and you might be too young, but I call it the Rocky IV moment, where it's like you have all the Russians booing you, and then by the 5th round they're suddenly cheering for that's a great feeling in comedies when you can turn a bad situation and like, whoa, okay, they weren't feeling me at the beginning, but I was able to figure out this puzzle, and now it's going okay.
I was watching this because now that I'm like doing more performance and I like watching what a performer does, be like, how can I learn from them? And that was cool. And he even had like, I saw he had a set, and then mentally he threw out the whole set. It was like, okay, we're going to go over to this set.
Right. Yeah. That I've had to do that a couple times. You just like, that's why I try not to have everything I'm going to say completely memorized before.
Yeah.
I have an outline, I have a skeleton. And then if I have to throw something in, I'd like to make it organic for that reason. Like, well, let me just be ready to just kind of bail and go here if I need to, let me just be ready and, abandon this. And like that, I try to as hard as possible to do that.
I do the same here. As you see it in the show notes. Well, one thing I want to know in your 22 years, what is the craziest thing that you've seen in the business?
Oh man, that is a good question because there's a lot. I've seen a lot of crazy. One night I was doing a show near the border in South Texas, and these two guys were just very well dressed, and they were just heckling every comic. And this town didn't really have a comedy scene, right? So a lot of the comics were kind of newbies from a neighboring city, right? Who just drove an hour and a half just to get to do stage time. And then a couple of them were beginners. And I was the only one who was just a little bit more seasoned.
Yeah.
So they put me up at the end, and I go up at the end, and I was so mad because they were just derailing the show, the hecklers. And all these comics, they were just horrified to say anything back. You could tell they'd never been presented with just such brazen heckling. They were just like, whoa, what do I do? So I just went up and just ripped the guys apart. For 30 minutes, I was every insult under the sun, and the audience loved it because they were sick of them, right?
Yeah.
And the two guys, they kind of laughed. They started at first they were giving me the stink eye, but then they started coming around, and at the end of the show, they came up to me, and in Spanish, they were like, you know what? Yeah, you're pretty funny, dude. Good for you. And they left, and then the guy who ran the nightclub came in, white as a ghost. And I'm like, what's up? He goes, well, what did they tell you? And I'm like, I told him what they told me. I'm like, why? What do you give a shit? And he goes, those guys are like big time linked up with the cartels. And I was like, whoa! What? I remember, even though they were cool, they were nice, I got in my fucking car. I drove 6 hours, 7.5 hours to Dallas that night back home. I was going to stay with family that night. I'm like, nope, I'm going to get my money. I'm going to buy like 5 Red Bulls so I don't fall asleep. I got home at like 4 in the morning. I was like, this is not, that was really scary. That was definitely, but I mean, doing stand-up, when I did stand-up in New York City, something, that we had to do these prom shows, which are like at 3 in the morning, they would bus in kids who just had a prom, high school kids.
Yeah.
And we would do a show for them at like 2:30 in the morning so they don't get into trouble. Every one of these kids was just wasted on booze, ecstasy, something. It just nightmare shows. Didn't pay attention, didn't give a shit. I don't blame them. They didn't want to be there. And it was just like the New York always had crazy, weird moments that would happen. There's a lot of interesting, but the heck, fighting back 2 guys who I should have just let them heckle me was probably the crazy. I just like, okay, well, all right, maybe pick your battles. Thank God they were okay with it. But yeah, that was pretty nuts.
I'm going to say that your self-confidence that and working through your self-doubt probably helped that night.
Yes, it did, because you're always good. Like, here's the thing. Unless someone is being just really bad, and these guys, when they would heckle me, it was more playful, right?
Yeah.
Because they knew that I was like, they realized, okay, this guy's more of a pro, whatever. You always want to leave a little room, I think, for self-deprecation.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to come across, because sometimes, even though someone's heckling and the crowd hates him, a comic, and I've done it, you could say something so gnarly and so mean that it shuts up the heckler, but the rest of the crowd is now like, whoa, this guy's an asshole,
Yeah, like,
so
whoa.
you lose them too. Yeah, so you kind of want to, you have to be very careful with that. Yeah.
Another place you're able to use your comedy, but you do have those same hecklers, and I don't know if you've had them yet, is online. And you've been gaming, as you said, like you've been gaming for so long, but you do things like the Retro Rocha, which is a deep dive into classic gaming.
Yeah, that one's on YouTube. I guess the most simple way to explain it, it's like a John Oliver segment, right?
Oh, okay, yes.
About an old game. That's how I look at it. It's like I just kind of have usually they range anywhere from like 5 to 8 minutes, and I just will do a segment, try to make jokes and talk about an old, classic Super Nintendo or Nintendo game. And then that's on YouTube, and that's every Thursday. And I think I'm going to start doing on Mondays, I'm going to do a modern stuff, because I still play a lot of modern games. Like, well, shit, might as well talk about these too,
Absolutely.
So, I think on Mondays I want to start doing modern gaming stuff. But every Thursday I do retro stuff. And then every night, pretty much on Twitch, I'm playing an old game. Dude, for the past 3 weeks, I've been trying to beat Super Mario Brothers 3. Almost got close last night. Well, I got to Bowser. We'll see. I'm going to try again tonight. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's also called Retro Rocha on Twitch. What
does that feel like when you finally beat, and you're like, I've been working on this.
It's the only way I can describe it is every time I beat a game that's been kicking the shit out of me or that whatever, I feel like Admiral Akbar in Return of the Jedi when they destroy that second Death Star and everyone's cheering and he just like slumps in his seat like it's over. I can finally go get a good night's rest. Like that was, oh shit, I'm okay. We did it. I'm going to my room. Don't nobody call me for 3 fucking days. Like that's how I feel. That kind of elation. It's this mixture of elation and, I did it. I finally climbed up this mountain. I'm done with it.
There's a game that I think you might find interesting. Have you heard of Horus?
That's not Warhammer, is it?
Not Warhammer. This is it's made by 2 people, but pixelated. It looks retro, has a story, but as you're going along, you're playing different things and like you can see that like where they get the inspiration from different games. And
that's cool.
The music is so great, but like I was playing it this week. I beat 3 bosses that had me hitting my head like get roasted, and like
I'm gonna get you.
Yeah, and like chat's like, okay, you got this. Oh, okay. Oh no, you got this. And how does that feel when you're beating bosses on Twitch and if you have people that are cheering you on?
Oh, it's the best feeling. It's such a great, again, it's back to the Rocky thing. It's just like you just hear. It's like you imagine them chanting your name. It's like, it's the best. It's so much fun. That is a great feeling. And then when I'm by myself, I'll do it sometimes too when I'm twitching the retro games. But if I'm by myself and I feel bad for my girlfriend because poor thing, she's trying to work, she's asleep, it's 2 a.m. Like when I was playing Bloodborne, oh my God. Every boss I would beat in Bloodborne, I'm just quoting Eazy-E at the top of my lungs. I'm grabbing my junk. I'm doing the DX suck it to the, I mean, for nobody. Nobody's watching this. I'm by myself. That's a lot of times I'll do that. I'll just sit there and be like, it's really embarrassing and stupid, but I feel like I earned it.
Absolutely. And Ali says she must have loved that.
Yeah. There's been a few nights where she's stuff. What are you doing, you idiot? I'm like, I'm sorry. Oops. I can't believe she's still with me. When we were first dating, she came over to my apartment. We were going to go out for dinner, and I made her wait till I beat Divinity 1. I just got into the final boss, and I was at the final boss. And I'm like, honey, like, look, I thought I would be done by now. And it was like a 20-minute battle. I won. She was very patient and nice. And I was like, yes, that was great. So kudos to her for putting up with that.
As Cap says, their favorite Twitch moment for you was when Andrea put the feather duster in your face in the middle of a fight.
She's done that. During boss battles, she's come and she knows when to break balls, and it's hilarious. She's good at that.
How did you get into streaming and YouTube?
Oh, the YouTube thing was the first one. It was funny, but I didn't know that Twitch was for adults. Does that make sense? It could be, right?
Yeah.
All I knew from Twitch was my little nephew watching someone play Minecraft, right? And not saying any curse word, you know what I mean? And I know that my girlfriend's nephews love to watch people play video games on Twitch. I thought, okay, is this just for kids? I thought, you know what? And people, hey, you should go on Twitch. I'm like, I don't know. It feels like it's for kids. I never really researched it. I never did the deep dive at all in it. And then what happened was, for a couple of Christmases ago, my girlfriend got me an analog Super NT, which is this gorgeous little device, and it allows you to play Super Nintendo and Super Famicom games on regular 4K flat screen HD televisions. Yeah. And it makes the graphics, they don't look better, but they don't look blurry, right? Like it looks clean and crisp. And so I was like, whoa. And so I kind of got into a kick of like trying to buy all the games I had as a kid, and also trying to find ones that I missed the boat on, right? That were classics. And then my sister got me a Nintendo version of it called the AVS for the NES. So I was like, well, hell. So I started with the YouTube thing at first. I was like, you know what? It was kind of thinking like, well, we're about to be on a lockdown anyway with this COVID. It's like, I might as well, since I don't know when I'm going to do stand-up again, let me try to have my creative whatever and just talk about. So that's where how about if I do a John Oliver type segment on an old game? So that's where the Retro Rocha thing on YouTube started. And then after I'd done a couple of them, I know Joe, Cap was like, hey, you should try Twitch. And then this other guy named Ron, I think he's on Twitch. Ron Plays Games Badly, I think is what he goes by. Yes. Ron had hit me up and he was like, dude, you should Twitch like whatever game you're thinking of doing a Retro Rocha on. And then I thought, you know what? F it. Let me just see what this is all about. Then I was like, oh, okay. You can say curse words. It is. Absolutely. I had no idea. I had no clue. And then so I started doing it, and I love it. It's so much fun. I do it pretty much every night. Like I know a lot of a lot of streamers will have a certain day of the week and a time, and they'll stream for a few hours. I need to get a set time, but I usually do it sometime at night, and I'll try to Twitch just an hour at the absolute most. And last night it was an hour and a half because, again, I was at Bowser. So it's like, let me try to beat him a few times.
You're doing it the right way, that like you're doing it every day, but you're limiting yourself. I do it every day, but I still have a limit. Like I'm going to stop here. Because I could not do the 8 to 12 hours, which is why I'm not one of those streamers. And you offset it with content. Like I have this show that offsets what I do. You have something to draw people to it.
Yep, exactly. I can't sit in a chair for 3 hours.
Yeah.
My ass is going to start to hurt. You know what I mean? I'm like, man, dude, I don't need this. Yeah. So I prefer just like an hour and a half at the absolute. I think the longest I've ever done was an hour and a half. But for the most part, it's anywhere from 25 minutes to an hour. You know, that's just kind of how I do it.
And with the games you're doing, it probably is wise because then you're not like frustrated. You're not like wanting to like break the controller.
Another 10 minutes of that Bowser battle, and all this shit behind me was going to be shattered. I was just going to start breaking my action figures in half. It would have been a mess. It would have been a nightmare. I would have destroyed my lovely Fredo Corleone pop vinyl. I don't know why they made a pop vinyl of Fredo, but I had to get it. I'm like, you really doing a Godfather pop vinyl? And all right, why not? Let's do it.
Just as long as you don't get a horse head in your bed.
Yeah, right. I bet that's why I'm going to be careful. I'll leave Fredo alone. Weird Al, he's next. Fredo, I'll leave him be.
No. I love Weird Al. Don't get.
I have two Weird Als. I have the playing the accordion, and then I have the fat music video Weird Al.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You just need the UHF one because
that's it. Did they make a pop vinyl UHF Weird Al? If they did, I'm getting it.
Yeah, if they do, let me know because I'm buying it too.
It's one of my favorite movies.
What is it about retro games that captures you so much?
That's how I fell in love with gaming. Was back then. You know, it's how I bonded. I mean, I don't want to say bonded, but my mother and I, it was just the two of us growing up. Yeah. So we were very close, and it was almost like she was more of a big sister, you know, and it was great. She was a mother when she had to be a mother, and a big sister for other, you know, and she got me a ColecoVision.
Oh, nice.
Her and her boyfriend for Christmas, and I couldn't believe it. And then at the time, and this is what kind of helped destroy the gaming industry until the NES showed up, but there was like Atari didn't really lock their shit down, right? So you could clone games. You could go to a store and buy an adapter that would let you play Atari games on a ColecoVision, and it was legal. Like imagine an Xbox edition for a PS4. Like you wouldn't, it'd be like, what? But so we would just play. Like there was this Pac-Man clone called Mousetrap, where you were just a mouse trying to get away from cats instead of ghosts, but it was the same thing, same grid. You're eating cheese instead of pellets, you know. And then there was a game called Frogs and Flies that my mother and I would play all the time. I was like 3 years old, and you were just on these lily pads, and you would just have to jump and try to eat as many flies. You were competing with each other. So gaming was always there for me. Like as far back as I can remember, there was a gaming controller I was playing. And then when the crash happened, of course, there was this weird lull. And then I'll never forget getting the NES and Super Mario Brothers. And that was just like, oh man. And then when Legend of Zelda came out, forget it. So I've always loved those classic games. I still love the new stuff, obviously, but my love of the older game, that because it just reminded me of why I love gaming is back then as a kid. Like you said, I bet that's probably when you fell in love with it, was watching your sister play Link to the Past. You know what I mean? Things like that. You're like, oh my, this is amazing. So yeah, that definitely, that helped.
I'm going to probably theorize that like during some of the dark moments of your comedy career, gaming was there to help you through them.
Always. Oh yeah. You have a bad set. That was the thing. I always made sure, I lived alone in New York City, I just moved, went and did it, chased it, and I loved it. And when I was in LA, man, when I first moved out here, it's tough when you're trying to get your footing in a new place. And so you have those nights where you just feel shitty about your career and everything. And you go home like, well, at least I'll go play Pazak and get money on Knights of the Old Republic. It definitely, there was always that wind down. It's a great way to wind down for me. Like it just kind of clear my brain of other things is to come home after a show, even after a good show, even after, and it's funny. I think it's kept me out of a lot of trouble. Like I'm not into a partying lifestyle. I've never been into doing drugs or getting blitzed or anything like that, because after shows, when I'm on the road, back when I could be on the road before COVID, I couldn't wait. I would bring my whatever gaming system. That's why I was so happy when the Switch came out. It's like, this is perfect for taking with me on the road, Yeah. Like a lot of times if I would drive to gigs, before, I was fortunate enough to be able to fly to a lot of them, I would just pack up the PS3 with me. You know what I mean? Like the PS3 gets its own duffel bag. I would just play games on the road and stuff. It's always been there.
That's why for me, I love gaming. Is it's the same thing that like, I can be having a bad day and I go on and stream, and I'm like, okay, I feel good. Like it.
Right. I could be pissed about being broke, or I could fire up Animal Crossing, or I have $3 million. And I'm like, hey, I'm balling. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, I have so many bells in Animal Crossing right now. What am I worried about? I can make rent. I bought a house. I have an 8-room house. What am I worried about? Yeah. I love that.
If you ever were to branch out to like other days, or like if you ever wanted to have like a Retro Rocha morning edition, Animal Crossing has a huge following if you have not seen on Twitch.
True. Oh my God. Yeah. Like I think about that. It's like, I love playing that game. I just caught the sunfish earlier today. I was very happy. I have one fish left to catch. Then August comes around, I get all the new ones, but I'm down to that. I think it's a giant trevally or whatever that thing is called. It's the only fish I have left, and I got one insect left. That's it, and I'm happy. So I love it.
I've been watching Animal Crossing, but I feel the same way that you do about WoW. I'm like, I kind of get what you're saying, but I got to tell.
Oh yeah, it is. I get obsessive. If I go a day without playing Animal Crossing, I'm like, shit, there's weeds in my village now. I got to go clean all that up. Like, I don't know. Maybe somebody threatened to move. Maybe the cool neighbor that I don't want to leave is already wanting to leave. I got to talk him out of it. Like, there's a lot of stress involved in Animal Crossing.
So being like relatively new, because like I'm relatively new too, what advice would you give those wanting to go into content creation, either YouTube or Twitch?
Be you. That's it. I approach it the way I approach stand-up comedy. You go in there, you tell the truth, you exaggerate it a little bit for laughs, but it's an extension of you. There are people who do characters and stuff like that, and hey, good for them. I don't like that. I want to be me. I want you to see this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and I would just say, if you're honest with yourself, you're going to be fine. Just be you. Like,
Frazley is me.
Yes,
it's my name. But it's not a character. There's no mask.
It's who you are. Right. It's who you are. And that's what I love. And people can get very successful with doing a character, and that's great. But it's just not my cup of tea. Like, I want to be who I am. I don't want to ever. I want to fail and succeed, knowing that it was 1,000% who I truly was. Like, put out what you want to watch. Put out what you like. That's how I approach my jokes. Like, I don't write a joke hoping someone else is going to like it. I write a joke because I want to like it. And then, knock on wood, if I'm good enough, I can sell it to other people. I approach my YouTube videos the same way. It's like, I'm not looking at this as, I got to go viral. I have to go, like, no, they're there. If somebody finds them, I know what they're going to find, and I know what they're going to see. And if they like it, great. And if they don't, great. But I don't approach it with if I do this, it'll go viral. If I say that, no, I'm me. And then it might take a little longer to reach that viral plateau, but I think it's so much more rewarding when it does, because the whole time you were you, Yeah.
Everything I've caught of you is what I'm seeing tonight. So, I mean,
thanks, man. Yeah.
I do like the fact that podcasting gives me the ability to talk with somebody. And in addition to what you've already done with comedy, with gaming, you also do a podcast. So.
Yeah, I have a podcast called The Ramble with my best friend, Eddie Pence. And that was funny, too, because I did it solo for so long. Eddie and I were movie buddies. That's how we kind of started. We met as comedians at a show, and I just couldn't understand how he could root for that Washington football team that took him 90 years to drop a racist nickname, but and he couldn't understand how I rooted for the Dallas Cowboys. And through that bonding, we just started hanging out, and he was just like, I think it was the A-Team movie that came out like however many years ago, where Liam Neeson was Hannibal. He was just like, hey, you want to go see that midnight? I was like, yeah, let's go. And then that started we were just movie watching buddies. And then eventually we had just seen, I forgot what movie it was. I'm like, why don't you just come on my podcast and let's talk about it? And then that just morphed, and it was just so much fun. I was like, Eddie, just keep doing it. Just stick around. Fuck it. Let's just do this. So yeah, it's for over a year now. We've been it's been great. Yeah. I love it. Now my buddy Cody's in it too, who's a film critic in San Antonio. And we got him maybe half a year ago. He was like fully on board every episode, which is great. So yeah.
You've been doing this since 2015. And that you've been...
Oh yeah. And again, I looked at a podcast as the same way. It's just in a way, I started a podcast when it was just me solo. It was my way of trying out ideas for jokes in my head. So I would just kind of talk about it would always help. I'd be like, let's say I want to write a joke about this event that happened to me at the grocery store yesterday. Well, I'll just tell the story on the podcast and then be like, oh shit, here's where the joke is. You know what I mean? And then it really helps like that. That's what I loved about it. And now it's just more fun. Now it's that element is gone now that there's actual co-hosts, right? It's less of me just spitballing ideas and it's more of us just cracking each other up, which is also fun in its own way and great, you know.
I didn't even think about this. One of the skills that you have, because you do this and you do Twitch and YouTube, is improv. And all of it helps you improv.
Yeah, it does, man. And improv, I never trained in it or anything, but I learned improv, I think, the hardest way to learn improv. And that was just getting heckled at a bar in the middle of nowhere in some shithole in Texas where you think you're going to get killed. You know what I mean? You really learn to come up with quips and quick things to say, and here's what you do. Like that, being thrown to the wolves is what helped me. Like, because I was so terrified of hecklers when I first started doing stand-up. I realized, you know what's going to help me is let me heckle the crowd. So I would walk out. There were shows where I would just do nothing but crowd work early on just to build that skill of how do I think on my toes, right? And it helps. It helped tremendously.
That's what helps make you on both podcasting and Twitch is that improv. And
you need to have it, right? Yeah.
Twitch, I don't know if you have hecklers now, but the podcast, I bet you've got hecklers. I bet you have people.
Sometimes we don't have, it's not live, so, you know, we won't see it, but every now and again, if we touch on something political, some moron will comment on the YouTube thing, and we're like, yeah, whatever. But, like, knock on wood, I've been lucky on Twitch. It hasn't really, all the heckling has just been friendly ball busting from the people who watch it, and I love that. I'm like, yeah, please.
Oh, me too.
The more, the better. Yeah.
That shows that somebody's there, that you're to somebody.
I think many times the most go-to heckle on my Twitch stream, someone will type like, I don't think the programmers knew you could die that bad in this game. I don't think they realized that dying that dumb was actually a possibility. I've gotten that several times, deservedly. I've gotten that several times.
What would you say has been one of the best things in the podcast?
But connecting with people. I would have never met Cap had it not been for the podcast. You know, things like that. You actually connect with people. It's great. That's been really fun. You don't think that's possible when you're just doing it, and then when you realize, like, oh, this is cool. Like, I actually know this person. Yeah, that's fun.
Captain asked me to ask you about Sephiroth Sean.
Oh God, it was this thing. Eddie and I, we were so dumb. I went to a GameStop, and this guy was working there, who we won't name. We called him Sephora Sean to protect us, and he was just spouting knowledge to me about what was going to happen when he was predicting how the X-Men were going to be introduced into the Marvel movie universe, things like that. And I'm just listening, like, I'm like, this guy knows everything. I was like, I've never heard such brilliance. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing working again? You got to be working for a movie studio. Get out of here, man. Right? I was just so like, what this? And I told Eddie, and he's like, whoa, we got to meet this guy. And then we talk about him on the podcast about how brilliant he was. And then Cap is just like, yeah, he's just regurgitating everything from a Kevin Smith podcast that came out like 2 weeks ago. And we're just like, oh. Oh, so now we went from praising him to just ridiculing him as often as we could. And that's where the Sephora Sean thing, that's what happened. We thought we'd call him Sephora Sean in case he caught wind of him. Not that he would, but, you know, so that was that.
You mean people will find data from something and then act like, oh, I know all this stuff. I'm an expert.
Right. I was stunned. I was like, how is this guy stealing shit? To me, that's stealing jokes. You don't steal jokes. It's no in common. So him, at least he could have at least said, "Here's what I heard."
Exactly.
Okay, I'm with you. It's not like I was going to blow him or give him money for what he was saying. So why don't you just, you don't have to pretend it was you. I'm going to, then I'm thinking like, well, why is he, if he knows this much, if he can predict this much, why is he not working for some comic book or movie company? Did something fucked up happen? At least just say where you got your ideas. But he didn't. And Cap ridiculed the shit out of us for it. And that's where the Sephora Sean thing, that's how that started.
People that do that don't realize that if you show somebody information from somewhere, you still are an expert because you heard it.
Right.
Yeah.
I learned math equations by listening to my math teacher. So now I know them, but I'm not going to walk around acting like I discovered the shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you still know it. It's fine. You have the knowledge now. You don't have to pretend like you discovered that. Yeah.
Insane Koi is saying that Ramble is their favorite part of the week.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. Yeah, we love doing it. Oh, you know what I will do? I will say, I haven't heard this anywhere. And I said it on the Ramble after E3.
Yeah.
My prediction, have you played Witcher 3?
I'm playing through it right now.
Have you done any of the DLC?
Not yet.
Okay. There's a character that you're going to meet in The Witcher 3 in the deal. You've already met him at the beginning of the game. But I'm telling you, I think that's who Keanu Reeves is in Cyberpunk.
Oh!
Because I won't say how or when, but if you continue Witcher 3, you might have already gotten there, but they mention Cyberpunk in Witcher 3. There is a character mentions going to an alternate world where everything was made of steel and they had these chariots that would fly around. And I'm like, that's Cyberpunk. Hey! And at E3, I met some of the people who were working on Cyberpunk, that CD Projekt Red, and I gave him my little Keanu Reeves theory. A lot of them would just kind of go, okay, that's all they would say.
Yeah.
One guy looked at me and says, I can neither confirm nor deny. And I'm like, oh, God, I'm right. I'm fucking right. I bet I'm right.
I love that. Because
yeah.
I love when developers and creators combine their worlds in that way. It's fun.
Well, the first one for me was as a kid watching the Transformers cartoon. Yeah. And there was an episode after the Transformers movie. This is 87, 88. And they met an arms dealer named Old Snake, who was voiced by the same guy who voiced Cobra Commander. And he had the same voice as Cobra Commander. But they never said who he was. He was just an arms dealer who it was implied that at one point he was at the top of the mountain and then he had a fall. But now here he is still kind of in the game. And at the very end of the episode, this Old Snake character is walking away and he says something like, they don't make us like they used to. Cobra! And he starts coughing right before he does the Cobra yell. And me and my friends were like, oh, it was Cobra Commander! Like, that was the beginning of falling in love with that. And then reading Stephen King. Like, you read the Dark Tower books. I don't know if you've read the Dark Tower series, but
I got a friend who has, yeah.
There is a moment in the Dark Tower book where all of a sudden some of the characters are in the stand. And I loved how he would all this shit is connected. It's all shared. Yeah. I'm a sucker for that. Like, I'm a sucker for that theory that every Quentin Tarantino movie is part of a shared universe where Kill Bill is actually the pilot episode of Fox Force 5, the show that Uma Thurman said she was in Pulp Fiction. Remember, she said she shot that pilot of a karate, and there's 5 of them on that team. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So yeah, like there was that, and there's, and it goes way deeper than that the shared universe stuff. But yeah, like I'm a sucker for that, and that's why BioShock Infinite is one of my favorite games ever.
Mine too.
When the guy in the barbershop quartet is singing the Beach Boys song, but it's 1918, and the girl tears open reality, and you see the Return of the Jedi in Paris on the marquee. Forget it. I was in. I was all in.
Are you familiar with the Pixar theory?
Oh yeah. That's an interesting one too.
I want that to be real.
I know. Oh, WALL-E's so far the most recent in that timeline.
Yeah, from what I understand, like maybe in our future, but because they'll actually.
Or no, it's Monsters. It's the Monsters one, right?
Yeah, it's the Monsters because we all leave on WALL-E and the monsters are now in the world.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I gotta.
And how like Brave is it? Yeah,
Brave's like the very first one, right?
Yeah.
Like Brave is the very first one, and then Cars is before WALL-E, I think. All the machines took over. I'm trying to remember how
after
all
Toy
that...
Story, because Cars after Toy Story, because and kept saying nerds. It's like we are huge nerds.
Yeah. My girlfriend wasn't on a work call right now. She would run in and do her little nerd alert. That's her favorite. When I start going off on this shit, she loves it. That's why, and again, with this God of War, have you finished that one, the PS4 God of War?
I have not finished that one. I bought it, but I've not finished it, but it looks amazing.
The end, I won't say it. You got to play it. Play it now. You know what? F it. Save time. Put it on easy mode. Just get through the story. Yeah. Play the story, because the ending of that game, holy shit. It's after the last battle, everything. I loved how you're just thinking, the credits start to roll And you're thinking the game is over, and it is over. There's no more fights to be had. But while the credits are rolling, they drop a bomb. And I was like, what? It was spectacular. So 1,000%, if you've avoided anything that happens in God of War, any story, play it. I thought that was really clever. I can't believe I was able to avoid it. I'm so lucky. And so when I got there, I was like, what? It's fantastic.
One thing to end it off, because in podcasting, I'm a huge proponent of podcasting and Twitch, but
yeah, I love it.
What is a bit of advice that you would give to someone from all things podcasting that you've done?
I think it's the same thing as stand-up, is just realize that it's an extension of you. You're selling you.
Yeah.
You're putting yourself out there, right? And, you wouldn't have a podcast unless you didn't feel that you had an interesting take on something. So make sure you do. If you want to be funny, make sure you're funny. If you want to be informative, make sure you're informative. Make sure, though, above all, you're yourself. That's the biggest key, is you have to be who you are. That's it. I think that goes with any type of, showbiz where you're not playing a role, right?
Yeah.
The cast of Critical Role, they don't have to worry about that. Because they can be a character. They can be, but if it's your first name, if it's your first name and last, if it's the blank blank show, make sure you're you. That's it. I think people, for the most part, can sniff bullshit. You don't want to be someone who people can go, I don't know if that's genuine. I think that's the worst criticism you could get, is to be considered not genuine.
I can't believe it. I'm through my prepared stuff, and we
did it.
I have to thank you again for just for being you and sharing yourself tonight.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for having me, man.
I hope people on audio can understand how much you had me laughing all night. So you are a comedian because you had me laughing.
Hey, I'll take it. Thank you. That's very kind of you, buddy. Thank you, man. And for what it's worth, I just thank you again for having me. And pretty please, dude, that camera you have looks amazing. Let me know what that is. I want to pick that shit up. I gotta up my game here, buddy. I gotta do this.
I'll be sliding into your DMs after the. After the
Nice.
Where can people find you on the interwebs to see your comedy, to see Retro Rocha or the Ramble?
So Retro Rocha on Twitch is just twitch.tv/Retro Rocha, ROCHA. And my YouTube channel is just YouTube, Jerry Rocha, JERRY ROCHA. Look me up there. Same thing if you want my albums, and then on iTunes, type in my name, type in Eddie Pence's name, wherever you get your podcasting. Myself, the Ramble, we're all there. Yeah, and I'm at Rocha Comedy on Twitter and at Jerry Rocha Comedy on Instagram.
And I want to end this with, what's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Oh, God. Man, I've gotten some bad ones. I had a uncle drunk once tell me to join a gang. That probably was... I'm going to say worse advice. Didn't listen.
Activating customized 4% transporter.
Well, I am back at home of Ironforge until we one day reclaim Gnomergon.
I'm a gnome.
Let's look at what has been happening in the community.
Awesome. Let's do that. So runs for the Uncrafted Voidwing are happening right now. Follow @FriendshipMountain on Twitter to find out where the various runs happen. And make sure to get your AOTC before the Uncrypted Voidwing takes flight with the Shadowlands pre-patch. And each group that is participating is raising money for different charities. Perky Pugs has raised over $1,100 for Rain this month. They've opened a Teespring store, and through July 31st, 100% of the profits will go directly to Rain. And in charities, Chumpa Chum streamed for 24 hours and raised over $1,300 for the mental health charity Mind. Give them a follow on Twitch, and I'm proud of what they did. And there's a new WoW podcast called Warcraft Reloaded. The description is dedicated to WoW Classic, where Blaze and Bob and Steelwolf discuss what's happening in WoW Classic and their experiences. I always love seeing new podcasts pop up, and I wish you the best, my friends. And we've got a bunch of dev interviews and discussions this week. Novel87 talked with Madeline Rue about Shadows Rising, and Madeline is on many podcasts recently, so keep an ear out. And then this week, Bellular and Preach each talked with Ian. You may have seen some discussion on what was said on Twitter, and I'm still trying to comprehend it all. And then Wowhead reports on a press event that happened recently, and Wowhead has a roundup of it, and many of the announcements and such that were in it. This roundup does not include the recent Bellular and Preach interviews, but there is so much here to dive in and read. And speaking of reading, Shadows Rising is now out. I'm still in the beginning of the audiobook, which is being read by Susan Wakoma, the voice of Talanji. Well, Warcraft tweeted out an amazing Talanji cosplay by Anonchus. And to end out the art, I saw this week that Alve has posted a gorgeous orc portrait that they made of Loka for Ace of Spades 1991. And this year, there will not be a BlizzCon, sadly, but I saw on the BlizzNerds Facebook group that there was a pen being worked on to continue the BlizzCon pen tradition. Well, it's now available for pre-order on Etsy for $10 US. And speaking of BlizzCon, I just wanted to congratulate my friends Knight and Kaifin, who got married this Saturday. The ceremony was broadcasted live on Twitch, and I'm so happy for these two who met in the world of Warcraft.
This has been another awesome episode of FrazlCast. Take it away, FrazzlePants.
Thank you, Scruffy. Well, I wanted to thank everyone for the support that you've been giving me on coming out as Arrow Ace and agender/non-binary these past 2 weeks. And I wanted to say that Sparkspans, which is this podcast, the Discord, and the Twitch, these will always be a place of inclusivity and positivity and being yourself. You've shown me so much love, and I want others to know that they have the same love. You are valid, you matter, and you are loved. A shout out to Austin of Frank's Hot Sauce Guild, who retweeted the episode with Carenza and said it was a great episode as always. And a shout out to Sash, who bought a Briawesome mask. To promote face mask use, I have 2 face masks available on TeePublic. One is Be Awesome and the other is Briawesome. I've got a link in the show notes. Over on Twitch, I have started a community challenge, and this one's for me to eat a pizza. So already we're at 2% raised. We need 100,000 Frazzle-Dazzles. Everybody can take part in this if you want, or you can save those for the tattoo that I will be adding back in once we are in a better place where we can do tattoos safely. I upload all the podcasts to YouTube, and I've been making a push to get to 100 subscribers. I want to thank everybody for all the support so far. I'm at 67 subscribers. We are way less than halfway now to 100 subscribers. And if you want to help me get to 100, please consider pressing subscribe there. Right now it's a podcast, but I've got hopes for more videos in the future. And thank you to everybody who has shown me support. In addition to showing me support with words of encouragement, every week I like to thank those who have given back to the show financially. Thank you to Kiki and Jedi for the gifted subs. And thank you to my Twitch subs out there. Thank you to Ali of Dungeon Fables and All Things Azeroth, Amanda of Geek Caring, Rico of Third Faction Show, Burkhart, Cap, Chainsmoker 258, Chaotic Goodish, Crunk, Demeternoth of Third Faction Show, Epic and Sandy of Frozen Nerds, Fiesta Taco 1983, Jen of Morally Grey Podcast, Grand Negus of Corpse Run Radio and Control Alt WoW, Harlow, Hottie Chicken, Jetta Faye, Jendon, Carenza, Kiki, Lucas of Cardiac Valley, Manny of For Azeroth, Michael of Tuners Maybe More and the Genome Project, Mikey of Rocky Mountain Blizzcast, Mikey128, Monica of Geek Caring, Only Shadowkin, Pandagosa, Peter Stories on Azeroth, Razarus, Remedies of Ponecast, Rake of Charactercraft, Scissor Lord, Sheba Brian, Sir Onion Knight, Spaz Wesson, Talvedos, Helenroyd, Wicked Kitten 13, and Zortz the Goblin. And thank you to Ali, Cap, and Scissor Lord for the bits this week. If you want to support the show financially, please go to support.gnomepodcast.com. And if you have Twitch Prime through Amazon Prime, you can use your free Twitch Prime subscription on the channel and get access to ad-free viewing and awesome emotes. And all of your support goes helping support this labor of love. Thank you very much. I was able to pay off 2 bills for this month thanks to the Twitch payout, so thank you very, very much. Well, I am Frazley, and you can find the show at gnomepodcast.com. There you can catch past episodes and find out many of the places where you can subscribe to this show to get the Gnome Train coming to you every single week. Well, until next week, be awesome.
FrazlCast is a fan podcast that covers Blizzard games. We are not affiliated with Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. Views expressed by the hosts and guests are their own. Some of the art, music, and sound effects come from Blizzard Games, and they are owned by Blizzard Entertainment, Inc. No copyright infringement is intended. This show is for the community, and it contains contributions from the community. The Gnome Train intro is by Ali of Dungeon Fables and All Things Azeroth. The opening music is by Brandon T. Blaylock. The Gnome Roar is by Jen of Morally Grey Podcast, and the Frazzle Pants bumper at the end is by the Scruffy Druid of Loot Optional and Viral Voice Arts.
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.
It's been fun. Farewell!